Scientists found an alien message hidden in human genes for centuries. We've stared up at the stars and asked the big questions. Are we alone? Where did we come from? We've been scanning the skies for radio signals, listening for a whisper from some distant civilization. But what if we've been looking in completely the wrong place? What if the most profound message in the universe isn't out there in the cosmos, but locked deep inside every single one of us? What if our DNA, the very blueprint of life, isn't just a product of evolution and chance? What if it was written? This might sound like science fiction, but a controversial paper by a team of researchers claims to have found what they call a structured, symbolic language tucked away inside the human genome. They say it's a message one too complex and precise to be an accident, a message they believe was left for us by an extraterrestrial intelligence. To really wrap your head around this claim, you first have to look at the puzzles in our own biology. The story science tells us is that life started simple and, over billions of years, evolved into the incredible complexity we see today. We, Homo sapiens, are supposedly the top of that evolutionary ladder. But there are some strange gaps in that story. One of the biggest is a period called the Great Leap Forward. For almost 200,000 years, our ancestors were anatomically modern, but their tools and behaviors were fairly basic. Then, around 50,000 years ago, something happened, in what is just a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms. Art, complex tools, sophisticated language, and symbolic thought suddenly exploded into existence. It was the dawn of modern humanity. But what flipped the switch? Anthropologists have been stumped by this sudden change for decades. Could there be more to it? People who explore theories of ancient astronauts think this sudden leap in our intelligence is a huge clue. They ask a simple question: was this just nature, or was our software upgraded? Then there's our DNA itself. The human genome is mind-bogglingly complex, made of 3 billion base pairs. For a long time, scientists dismissed huge chunks of it as junk DNA, just evolutionary leftovers. But the more we learn, the more we find that this junk is full of complex instructions that control how our genes work. Could all of this intricate programming really be the result of random, accidental processes? Or does it look a little too much like it was designed? And that brings us back to that controversial 2013 paper published in the journal Icarus. Two researchers, mathematician Vladimir Shubak and astrobiologist Maxim, proposed a totally new way to look for aliens, an idea they call biological setting. Their argument is pretty logical. A radio signal can fade, and monuments turn to dust. But a message embedded in the genetic code of a life form could be copied and passed down for millions, maybe billions of years. Shubak and Makarkov believe they found that exact kind of message. They claim that hidden in our DNA are specific arithmetical and symbolic patterns. They describe it as a precise language that even appears to use things like decimal notation. According to their math, the chance of just one of these patterns showing up randomly is 1 in 10 trillion. For them, this isn't just a coincidence. It's a signature. It's a stamp of artificiality, left by the authors of our genetic code. They suggest the code was set in its current form a very long time ago, and is an incredibly reliable way to store a message. For ancient astronaut theorists, this is the smoking gun they've been searching for, a message woven into our very cells, suggesting we might have been engineered by an off-world intelligence in the distant past. The idea that life came from beyond Earth isn't actually new. It's a hypothesis called Panspermia, which suggests life is spread across the universe by things like comets and asteroids. But there's a more radical version of this called directed panspermia. This theory was famously proposed back in 1973 by Francis Crick, the Nobel Prize winner who co-discovered the double helix structure of DNA, and his colleague Leslie Orgel. Crick knew better than anyone how impossibly complex DNA is, and he found it hard to believe it could have just happened by chance on a chaotic, early Earth. So he and Orgel suggested a wild alternative. What if life was deliberately sent to Earth by an advanced alien civilization? They imagined these beings loading microorganisms onto a spaceship and sending them out to seed promising planets like ours. While Crick and Orgel admitted there wasn't enough evidence at the time, they saw it as a plausible explanation for how life began. Just think about that. One of the scientists who unlocked the secret of DNA thought it was plausible it was sent here on purpose. People who believe there's a message in our DNA see this is a critical clue. If a civilization was advanced enough to seed life on Earth, wouldn't they also be able to encode their signature in it? Does the signal that Shubak and Makarkov claim to have found match the distinctive signature that Crick and Orgel thought we might one day discover? It changes the question from did life come from space to was life programmed in space? If humans were engineered by aliens, you'd think there would be some record of it, right? Ancient astronaut theorists believe there is. They suggest that our ancestors, who didn't have words for genetic engineering or extraterrestrials, described these events in the only way they could, through stories of gods and magic. Look at myths from all over the world. You see a recurring theme: powerful gods coming down from the sky to create humanity. The Sumerian texts tell of the Anunnaki who came from the heavens and made mankind. The Bible says God created man in his own image. Many Native American traditions tell stories of star people who came down to share knowledge and guide human development. Could these be more than just stories? Are they fragmented memories of a real event? Proponents argue that a phrase like "created in their image" might have been a literal description of genetic engineering, of aliens shaping a primitive hominid's DNA to be more like their own. The gods who performed miracles and held great power could have just been beings whose technology was so advanced it looked like magic to our ancestors. When you put these ancient stories next to the modern scientific puzzles, a great leap forward. The complexity of DNA and the claim of a hidden mathematical signal, a pretty wild story starts to take shape. It's a story where myth and science might just be pointing to the same conclusion, that we are a product of both earthly evolution and extraterrestrial design. So, what's your take? Is our DNA just a product of a long, messy, and unguided evolutionary process? Or are the puzzles and patterns too much to be a coincidence? Let us know what you think down in the comments. And if you find these kinds of questions as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next trip into the unknown. So, where does that leave us? We're left with a series of deep mysteries: the sudden, unexplained explosion of human intelligence, the incredible complexity of our own genetic code, which even its co-discoverer thought might be alien in origin, and a controversial, but fascinating, claim from modern scientists that our DNA contains a mathematical message. When you look at all these pieces together, from ancient myths to modern genetics, they paint an astonishing picture. Mainstream science is nowhere near accepting these conclusions, and the idea of an alien message in our DNA is still highly speculative. But the questions it raises are too important to just brush aside. If we are the product of some ancient alien intelligence, what does that mean for us? Are we an experiment, a legacy? Maybe the message in our DNA is a greeting, a warning, or a set of instructions. The journey to figure it out is just beginning, and a final answer may not be found by looking up at the stars, but by looking deeper inside ourselves than ever before.